Welcome to the Daily DLP. I'm your host, Ash Thompson, and today I'm continuing my NFL free agency preview for the Detroit Lions. Today, I'm hitting 3 spots, actually 4. Apparently, I'm terrible at counting. I'm hitting 4 spots where I barely think it's even worth mentioning what the Lions might do. We're talking about running backs, tight ends, linebackers, and quarterbacks. Let's get it on. I'm going to start with linebackers. The Lions linebackers are fine, and I honestly don't expect the team to add any significant pieces in free agency. Alex Anzalone, Jack Campbell, and Derek Barnes splitting the regular roles and getting spelled by Malcolm Rodriguez and Jalen Reeves-Maybin. That is a solid 5-deep linebacker crew that you really don't need to tweak. Like, it's the one group on the defense that I don't really foresee them needing to add much at, if anything. Not many teams have a group that's that good and that deep. Like, at the top end, you could argue that at the very top end, the team would be better if they added something up top. So that's what we're going to talk about here. So I'll start with the home run, and that's Patrick Queen. The thing that stands in the way of that is that Alex Anzalone signed a deal last year that's more than 1 year. If you were looking for a menace to put beside Jack Campbell and launch at a quarterback from 1,000 different places, that's what Patrick Queen is great for. But he's probably going to get paid a lot, like a real high salary. And I don't anticipate the Lions doing that because they do have Anzalone. So it would be kind of shocking if the Lions went out and swung for the fences in the linebacker group. But the Lions have a tendency to shock us, so I guess I'll talk about it anyway. The triple is Frankie Luvu because he's what the Lions hope Derek Barnes turns into. He's a perfect fit for the role that the Lions have been trying to kind of shoehorn Jack Campbell into at times, where they're the 4-3 under outside linebacker who sometimes comes off the edge, but usually drops in coverage or blitzes from various spots. This is probably still going to be somewhere near a double-digit price tag, so I don't think the Lions are going to do this either, particularly with Barnes having taken a huge step last year. And a single or double or walk are exactly what the Lions don't need. I'm not going to spout off like I know every special teamer linebacker in the league, so there's really not much else to say. I legitimately don't think that they should bother signing anybody here. Yeah, that's it. I guess, like, I've always liked Sone Takitaki, and athletically he's a pretty good fit for what the Lions look for. Like, he's not perfect, but he's like a pretty good example of the kind of linebacker. So if you were looking for somebody that isn't going to get paid like a starter, that's who I'd go for. But I think the fact that they brought Jalen Reeves-Maybin back basically fills that void. Like, this would be like an Anthony Pittman replacement. And yeah, that's the level of discourse I have at linebacker. So I'm going to move on. Running backs. The Lions will absolutely not go after Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, or Saquon Barkley. They're also not going to go after Tony Pollard or Austin Eckler. This is a really good year to need a free agent running back, by the way, because there are never 5 guys that good available in a single offseason. That just doesn't happen. None of them are going to get paid huge because there are 5 of them. So there's not going to be multiple teams banging down the door to pick up an old running back. So, like, what do the Lions actually need running backs to do? That's read blocks and break tackles. They have 2 who do that. So this comes down to special teams utility and the backup role. So, like, DeAndre Swift isn't coming back because no interest in doing any of that. That's why he got traded, because that's what he would have done here last year. Honestly, like, that running back, just bring back Craig Reynolds and draft somebody day 3. I'm not talking about running backs anymore. There's no point. Tight ends. Sam Laporta is the receiving threat. The Lions' second and third tight ends need to be blocking and special teams guys, right? Well, kind of yes, but also no. Like, the Lions are only one play away from starting Brock Wright at tight end. And I mean, no offense to Brock Wright when I say this, but improving that plan would be a good move for the team. If the Raiders let Austin Hooper go, I would definitely go out and take a look. Like, he's had a bit of an up and down career as a blocker, but he's a solid receiver, and like his downs are adequate as a blocking tight end. Like, the Lions don't need a tight end. I can't do this and fake like super excited about this position group. Like, it's like running back. Just draft a guy day 3 if you like him, but know that barring injuries, he's not going to see any snaps, and you still have your guy that you drafted last year or a couple years ago. Who basically last year was his rookie season. Anyone you draft is probably going to end up on the practice squad. So, like, don't. And let's do quarterbacks. I almost left this off the list entirely because what I have to say is, like, don't sign anybody. My advice to the Detroit Lions is this. Get Hendon Hooker ready. Get Jared Goff ready. Everything else you do is noise. Those are the two things. Like, if 6 weeks into free agency, there's a guy who's willing to sign for a couple $1 million that, like, just because he didn't get a job anywhere and has zero prospects, cool. But a veteran quarterback, as we saw in Cleveland last year, like a guy who's in his mid-30s doesn't need to come in for training camp for you to be able to build a functional offense around what he does if your coaching is good. Like, we saw what Joe Flacco did. And is Joe Flacco was he some sort of special case that's better than all of the guys who can't get work once they get into their mid-30s? No, not really. He's always had a good arm. Always been a reasonably decent quarterback. But I mean, you could say the same thing about Tyrod Taylor, who is going to be, no one's going to bang down their door to hand him a job. Like, I guess if you wanted to, before that point, like one of the guys who will get signed before that point is Jacoby Brissett, who could come in and win you some games. But he's going to be looking for a bridge gig for one of the teams that doesn't draft a quarterback in round 1. Same with Gardner Minshew. Like, I'd love to have him on the team too, but he's going to be hunting for a spot where there is some playing time to be found potentially. Those guys are, just going to be looking on to catch on after the draft at whatever team doesn't get their guy, unless somebody throws a bag at them. And the Lions should absolutely not be the team that does that. Ryan Tannehill, also a guy where, like, he's not going to get a gig handed to him, and he might price himself out of the market completely and make everybody else just move on. But I think he'd probably be more likely to retire than take like a probably not going to play job, just based on his reaction to the potential that he might be some kind of mentor quarterback in Tennessee, and his just extreme negative reaction to that concept. Like, just not a guy that the Lions should look at. If I were rebuilding a team and I didn't find anybody, like say if I were New England and I wanted to draft Marvin Harrison instead of taking the third quarterback that I'm not in love with, a Ryan Tannehill signing would be my precursor to making that move and potentially trading back to whoever really does want that guy. But that's just me. Drew Lock, whatever. This doesn't matter. I'm also not going to be doing kickers, punters. So that leaves corners, safeties, offensive linemen, and receivers. And I guess tomorrow I'm going to do edge rushers. So see you then.